Ladies and gentlemen, a new snapshot has been released for Minecraft Java Edition 1.14 The Village and Pillage Update. Here is 18w49a. My name is slicedlime and I'm here to take you on a comprehensive tour of all of the changes in this snapshot, which is focused around a new consumable crop and a bunch of new village features. And strap in, cause this is gonna be a long one. Let's start with blocks and items. A new food item has been added to the game. It's called the sweet berry. Sweet berries are not very filling, they give only one spot of hunger on the hunger bar, but you can also plant them on dirt and grass, and then you get a new block type crop called the berry bush. The berry bush can also be found in the world. They are commonly found in Taiga hills and Taiga mountains, and you can also sometimes find them in snowy Taiga hills and snowy Taiga mountains. Berry bushes have 4 stages of growth: the freshly planted stage, the fully grown bush with no berries, and then with some berries, and then with full ripe berries. If the berry bush has grown past its first stage, then moving through it will both slow your movement and also deal damage. However, if you stop moving, you stop taking damage. As opposed to magma blocks, sneaking does not help when moving through berry bushes. In their younger stages, if you break the berry bush, it will drop 1 or 2 berries, and in the fully grown stage you'll get 2 to 3 berries. However, you can also pick the berries when they are fully grown by right-clicking, and that will not destroy the bush. You can also use the fortune enchant, but that only works when you do destroy the bush. Finally, you can also bone meal the bushes, and if you bone meal them past the last stage of the growth, then the berries will pop off. Let's talk about some gameplay changes. A bunch of fireworks fixes. Firework boosting didn't work in the first world you loaded after starting the game. And also, firework rockets that you fired from a crossbow would slide across the ground and would also not explode when they hit something. That is fixed in this version, so enjoy your new crossbow rocket launcher. Shulker boxes didn't drop when you mined them by hand without a pickaxe. That's fixed in this version, and banners that had been renamed would lose their name when placed, which broke map marker functionality as well. And now let's get into changes with villages and pillaging, which is going to take the vast majority of the time for this video. Let's start with the raids. The raids have been buffed a little bit. There are now 2 waves per bad omen level, and you can now stack bad omen level to 5 at the maximum. The Illage Beast now also has a possibility to be part of every wave. Previously, waves could start before the previous one was completely done. That's changed in this version, so now you have to complete a wave fully before the next one starts. Few bug fixes with raids too. Raids would never finish if something that wasn't a player killed some of the raid mobs. That's fixed in this snapshot. And the raid would never finish if the player was set to peaceful mode while subjected to the raid either, and the raid bar would not decrease if mobs walked into a portal or a gateway. Now, for world generation, there are 2 new types of villages. They are updated villages for savannas and a completely new village for snowy biomes. So you can find them in snowy biomes, and they have a whole lot of new types of buildings and road formations. We're gonna go through everything about these villagers. They're generated with the new jigsaw block system. And before we look at the specific structures, I'm gonna have to explain a little bit about those blocks. Alright, so here we are in a test world that I've made with all of the different pieces for these snowy villages. And as you can see, the pieces contain a whole bunch of these black jigsaw blocks. And in order to understand how these villages kind of put together, I kind of need to explain how this jigsaw system works. So this is a structure file. We've loaded it in from this structure block called corner01, and it has these built in. And the way this system works is it kind of connects the pieces of the village just like you would connect jigsaw puzzles using these jigsaw blocks. So these blocks, as they point out here, are connectors. So what you'll end up with is this piece on this plot of the village connected to a jigsaw block pointing the other way from a different piece. So this one, for instance, is a street attachment to this target pool. So basically another piece of street can generate out here from this piece. These ones are decor ones. We'll get more to what that means later. This one is a building entrance, so it picks one of the house types. So that's how these are connected together. I'll leave them in here so you can kind of see where things will end up being generated. Now, with that said, if you want to take a look at this closer, then there's a link in the video description to download of these test worlds, because I'm going to be going through these quite quickly. There are quite a lot of these plots to go through. If you want to see which piece something is, then you can always right-click on the structure block and you'll get the name of it right here. And I've made sure that all of the structure blocks are accessible in all of these plots. So, with that said, let's get going, because there are a whole bunch of this, and we're going to start with the street pieces. We've been staring at this one for a while. This is one of the 3 corner types. Here's the second one. It has a house connector in there, so it will be a house spot in the middle here. And the third one is this tiny little corner one here. Then there are 6 different crossroad types, including this one with tons of possible building connectors. A 3-way connection there. There's also this 4-way one with a decor in the center of it. Rabbit not included, that's jumped in from the snow up there. Also this slightly offset 4-way one, and a whole bunch of tiny little crossroads types. This one is called a square. It's actually a tiny bit of path leading up to 2 different house blocks and a decor thing in the center here. So it will create a little square here and 2 buildings on the sides there. And then we have 6 different straight pieces with various decorations. This one has a whole bunch of decor ones. This one has a house to the side. This has a lot of possible building entrances and a bunch of decor, and so on. You can see the differences yourself. A slightly twisted one here, and then finally a turn piece, which is just another piece of road that is just slightly less straight. And then we have here the decor ones. These ones are the lamppost ones. There are 3 types of lampposts for snowy villagers, and decor does not only have to be lampposts. There are other things as well that can be decor, but those are not structures. Those are features spawned in by the terrain generator. That is, if for a snowy village, a spruce tree, a snow pile, or an ice pile. But there's also these 3 types of lamppost, as you can see. Then we'll get into something called the town center or meeting point. They are special kind of central hubs in the villages, and this one has a town bell there next to this big ice pillar. The second one is a little more simple, but with an ice pillar in the center, and this one has this covered structure also with a town bell underneath it. And then we're going to get into all of the houses, and for the purpose of a village generation, all of these things are considered houses, even if this is an animal pen that can show up in place of a house. And the same goes for the farm sections. So we're going to look at the animal pens first. You'll have this small, nice one with a kind of watering tray in the center there, and this can spawn in animals. And there's this one, which is a little more open one with a snow pile. And we have 2 types of farms. This one with a lantern hanging above it, and this more snowy one with a lantern standing in the center. Then we get to the houses. There are a lot of houses. We split them into 2 kind of categories in general. One is the generic house, which is just a medium or small house. And those, when they contain loot, that loot is specific to the snow type of village. The other ones are going to be profession-based houses like a library or a temple, like you're used to. But there are also a whole bunch of new ones, and we'll go through those later. When those have loot, they have loot specific to the profession rather than to the village type. So, for instance, you'll have a tannery type of loot. Again, we'll go through all of the types of loot after we've gone through all of the different types of structures. Snowy villages have 3 medium type houses. These are the ones, this igloo type house. These spawn in villagers, or can spawn in villagers. There's this bigger type of house with 2 stories. If I can find my way to the front door, one of them here. And it's kind of cramped inside, but you can also go up to the top floor, and up here you have a furnace. The last type is this second type of igloo-like structure, but this one made of ice. Both packed ice and blue ice also has a furnace inside of it. Then in addition to that, there are 8 types of small houses. Inside of here you can find a village spawn thing and a log, kind of very sparse little house. Second house is this one. Try to make it over to the entrance here, and this one has a furnace inside of it and not much else, made out of stripped wood blocks. Third type of small house has a connector here for building entrance, and then a double door, and this one also has double furnaces inside. The next type is one of the smaller igloo types, and this one has a lantern and also a furnace inside with some small decorations for furniture. Next type is a kind of mix, has both blue ice blocks and snow blocks, and this one has a loot chest, and that will contain loot that is according to the Snowy Village loot table. We'll go through those later. This one is a little more fancy, a little bigger, also has a furnace inside of it and a loot chest. House type number 7. It's 2 lanterns out front, and inside of it's very small and only basically has, I guess you just have to call that a sofa, because it certainly isn't really a bed. And then the last type of small house for the Snowy Village is this igloo type with just a little chair and a dining area. Then we move on to the profession types. This is one that you will recognize from previously in the game. This is a library that now has a lectern and also a lantern and a whole bunch of bookshelves, of course, still. We move on to another type that you'll recognize, although in new form. This is the temple. And the temple for the Snowy Villagers contains a brewing stand, so I guess potions have some form of place in this religion. I'm not going to comment further on that for sure. There are 2 different types of armorers' houses. This one with the lantern out front has a blast furnace inside with this big chimney-like structure and a loot chest. And then the second type also has the blast furnace and a little bit of a chimney thing here, but is a little smaller. The next thing we're looking at is the butcher's shops. There are 2 types of those as well. This one with a smoker inside of it, and then also an exit out the back to a little area where there can spawn in butcher animals. And then the second type is a snow structure, and inside of that it doesn't have any smoker, but it does have one out the back instead. The next thing we're looking at is a cartographer's house. That's this little baby, and to no surprise, this has a cartography table, but it also has a loot chest inside of it. Cozy little cottage. This house is a fisherman's hut. Has a little pool of water out front, contains a bunch of barrels inside of it. This next one with the logs in this configuration around the door is the Fletcher's house. Has a fletching table, as you might have guessed, and this nice little blue dining table area. This one with a bunch of snow on the roof here is the tannery. Tannery has a furnace inside of it with this chimney-like thing, and a couple of cauldrons and a loot chest. And remember, this loot chest will contain items depending on the tannery loot table, not the Snowy Village loot table. This is a tool smithy, very cramped, has a smithing table in here, and the lantern, and not much space for anything else. This bigger one on the outside is the weapon smithy. It has a grindstone and some lava on the outside, and if we go inside we'll find another grindstone and a loot chest. 2 types of mason's buildings. This one with the double doors and the funky carpet has a stone cutter and a bunch of furnaces inside, and this other one with more of a wooden structure has a single furnace and a stone cutter inside. And then the final type of house for the Snowy Village is the shepherd's house, and it has a couple of looms inside, a chest for loot there, and an exit out the back to a little pen with sheep inside of it. That's a lot of houses and a lot of types of things. Let's head over to the Savannah Village and take a look at the new set of buildings and stuff for Savannah villages. And here we are in the Savannah test world. It's approximately as big, and let's just get into it. A lot of the pieces are very similar, especially the road type pieces. So there are two corners, this bigger one and the smaller one, and there are a bunch of crossroads. This squiggly type one almost looking like a cactus, this kind of twisted off to the side four-way intersections, and three smaller ones, and this kind of funky one with a bunch of farmland inside of it. Then there are two ones called splits. They are this kind of three-way intersections like that, and this one with a three-way intersection, and this is a building entrance. And then a bunch of straight pieces, 8 straight sections. We're just gonna sort of scroll past them. There's one with the farmland here, and then another one with some farmland off to the side here, kind of interesting ones. And then finally, over here, there's one called Turn, which to me looks very similar to the straight sections. The one and single decor structure for Savannah villages is this one, the lamppost, which is simply a piece of fence with a torch on top of it, but there are non-structure decor for the Savannah villages as well. There's the Savannah tree, the hay pile, and the melon pile. 4 meeting point town center things for Savannah is this thing. Interesting kind of marketplace layout. There's this bigger fountain style thing with a town bell. There's this dual well kind of thing with a town bell, and then there's a single bigger well style one with a town bell in it as well. There are 3 types of animal pens for Savannah villagers. There's this covered one with a water tray. There's this open one with a gate to it, with a larger area and more animals, and there's this covered larger one with a single freestanding roof structure. Farms are split into large and small for Savannah. There are 2 types of large farms. Here's one with the wooden surroundings and one with the grass surroundings, and then there's one small farm with a bunch of melon stems inside of it. 2 medium house types. This is the first one. It's kind of 2 houses in one. These are incredibly small. You can also walk between them here, and they have a little bit of garden here, and a crafting table and a chest in the second house. The second medium building is this one. It's a smaller one with just a crafting table and some decorations inside of it. As with the snowy biome, there are 8 smaller house types, but these ones are more similar. If you go into this, or check out the interior of this yellow house, you'll see, and they are all very similar. There's a little bit of a difference in the interior. This one, for instance, has a loot chest where the yellow one didn't, but in general, the structures are very, very similar. The wooden ones are a little bit different. There's loot in this one and has 2 doors. And then there's this funky half yellow building here. If you see, you cannot actually get up into this tower. It's just it's a tower thing in the middle here. These blocks, by the way, get replaced by something else. That's why we can't get in and out in this mode, where you will be able to walk in and out later. This next one is a very similar, smaller version of that doesn't have a loot chest inside of it. Another very similar wooden one, but this one does have a loot chest. And here's the final small house for the Savannah biome. Very similar to the last one in the snow biome, just a sofa inside and nothing else. Very small interiors. Let's move on to the profession-based houses. This is the library for the Savannah. A very different one, has some carpet and a few bookshelves, but not at all as many, and the lectern, of course. 2 different types of temples for the Savannah biome, very different from the snowy ones. Here's the first one, contains a nice little setup, also has a brewing stand inside of it. And over here is the second one, a little bit of a taller building, a little bit more sparsely decorated, but also has a brewing stand inside of it. The next building is an armorer's building. This has a blast furnace inside of it, one of these funky glazed terracotta blocks above it, and not much else. And that is the only armor type in the savanna biome. There's still 2 butcher's shops in this one. One looks like this, with a smoker inside of it like this, and this nice checkered floorboards, and then a pen out the back with some butcher's animals in it. The other one is a little bit of a raised structure with a staircase leading up, and this has a loot chest and an exit out the back to a smoker. Cartographer's building for the savanna biome only has a cartography table and a chest and not much else. Fisher's cottage has barrels outside this time instead of insides, and it's a raised house on stilts, but the inside is extremely cramped. It's 3 square meters of interior. Lucky I'm not a villager. Fletcher's house in the savanna biome has a table, and Fletcher's table and a second dining table over here. 2 doors on this one. Tannery for the savanna biome has the entrance over here, and contains a chest and 2 cauldrons for this one as well. 1 type of toolsmithy. Smithing table in this one as well, a little open area. Savanna biome has 2 types of weaponsmithies. Here's one of them, has a grindstone inside of it and a little table, a little smaller than the snowy version. This one is more like the snowy version, has a grindstone out front and 1 source of lava. The snowy biome one had 2. And this one has a grindstone on the wall inside of it instead, and a loot chest around the corner. As with the snow biome villages, there's a mason. This has these yellow glazed terracotta blocks above the door, a loot chest and clay blocks inside of it, and a stone cutter. And then finally over here we have the shepherd's house, which is very similar to how it looked in the snowy biome. Just pen out back with space for some animals, a loom inside, and not much more. We're going to take a look at one last village type. It's not new to this snapshot, but I haven't gone through it in this much detail before, so let's head on over to the new plains villages and take a look at that one as well. And here we are, our 3rd and final test world with the plains biome new village setup. Very similar. We're going to go through it real quick. This was not added in this version, as I said. It was added in last week's snapshot, I believe, but I just went through some examples of how it looked when the finished form and not all of the things that it can contain. So let's take a look at this one. As the previous ones, contains 3 types of corners. We've seen exactly this type before. Crossroads, 6 crossroads for this type of village. Also very similar to some of the savanna ones. 6 straight pieces as well, very similar these as well. You will start to recognize a pattern at this point, I am sure. And then 1 final one called a turn. Here's a different one though for the plains biomes that didn't exist in the other one. This one is a fountain. It's considered a meeting point or a town center, but it's named a fountain. And then there are also 3 meeting points. Oh, by the way, we should look at this too. This is the 1 lamppost for the plains biome, plains lamp 1. But of course there are non-structure decors for the plains biome ones as well. They are an oak tree, a flower, or a hay pile. You might have seen the hay piles, they tend to end up a little bit all over the place. Here are the other 3 meeting points. There's a bigger well type meeting point, a marketplace with these fancy stalls with the yellow and white roof, and this town center style tree park area with 2 town bells. Let's move over to the houses section. Start with the animal pens. There are these smaller animal pens. There are 3 of them in total. Here's 2 bigger ones, one with this watering pen too. Then there are 2 stables, something that we didn't really find in the other 2 village types. So if we look in here, this is open with hay bales, and this will spawn common animals type. And this is the second type of stables, a little bit different building, but same general form. 1 large farm for the plains style villages, that's this one. dual farms, very close to the classical farm type that you'd see in the old type of village. And then there's also one small type of farm, that's this one. Very similar. Here's something that's different from the other types. This one is called the accessory, and it's just a little flower bed thing here, but it also is considered a house type, so this flower bed can be spawned in instead of a house. Plains biome villages has a big house type, and then also medium and small house. This is the big one. It's a 2-story building, and if we go around to the entrance, which is here, okay, I guess we'll go through the wall. We end up inside. You'll see that it has a staircase up and a loot chest on the top floor. So that is the big house in the Plains biome villages. There are also 2 medium houses. Here's one. It's a staircase in and a little bit of an open space, but not much inside of it. And the second one is over here. One big open area, but this one has a loot chest. As with the other villages, there are also 8 types of smaller houses. We'll just take a look inside of each one real quick. They're kind of similar, but with different materials and different interiors. But the buildings themselves are very similar. Apparently villagers sleep on the floor. This one is a little nice, has some flower beds outside. Not much inside though. And this one with double doors actually has a loot chest inside of it. Final one is a raised one with some garden stuff outside, but inside very cramped stone environment. Let's get into the profession houses for the Plains biome villages. This is an armorer's house. Double doors, a little bit bigger, long stone bench and a blast furnace off to the side, and this little chimney fireplace thing. 2 butcher's shops in the Plains biome as well. Double doors to this one, smoker back in the corner, a little nice decoration, but no animal pen for that one. And this other one has kind of a 2-story building. You have a very small staircase up here. And the smoker is on the top floor in this one, and this one also has an exit out the back to an animal pen. The next one is the cartographer. Cartography table, less nice fancy carpet, and a loot chest over to the side. Fisher's cottage, I've had to put up some barriers here because the water would flow all over the place. This house will actually be spawned in sunk down one, so this will just be a pool of water out the front. Barrels out around this house in this version as well, but also a couple inside with a little bit of a nice fishing pond, I guess, inside. Kind of odd. I guess fishermen don't sleep. Next thing is a Fletcher's house, has this nice little overhang out front. Carpet inside, yellow, and a Fletcher's table. Not much more to that. Plains biome villages have had 2 types of libraries added. This is a big one, it has 2 lecterns and a whole bunch of bookshelves towards this wall, and also it's a 2-story building, so if we walk over here, we have exits out to a balcony out the front if you go up those stone staircases. The other library is a little bit smaller, but also 2-story. A couple of bookshelves and a lectern down in the lower portion, and just an exit out to a balcony on the upper floor. Then we're moving on to the tannery. Tannery in this version has the cauldrons out the front, loot chest inside, and another cauldron against the back wall. The next thing is a tool smithy, double doors on this one, and a smithing table way at the back. Otherwise completely empty. The next one is a weapon smithy. This is more like the classical smithy's building, but with a grindstone added, the 2 furnaces and the lava out front, and inside we'll still find the loot chest, classical loot chest from the smithies, but now with an added grindstone for benefit. One mason's house in this version as well. It's this pretty thing in pink with clay blocks and a terracotta blocks inside, and of course a stone cutter. Next one is the shepherd's house. Has this nice little canopy at front and a very fancy floor, 2 looms in here, and an exit out the back to a sheep pen on the back side. There are 2 types of temples for the Plains Biome village. One is this one, kind of an open terracotta structure with some seats on the side and a brewing stand at the back. And then finally, there's the classical style of church building, but it now has an added brewing stand in there. You can still climb up to the tower and keep a lookout. The last 2 sections are meeting point town center things, but for whatever reasons they are in the houses category. So there are 2 more meeting points. One is this little market-like thing with a town bell in here, and the other one is this 3-stall version with the town bell inside of one of them. And those are all of the different plot types for the Plains Biome villages. Like I mentioned before, the village loot has changed as well. There are fewer emeralds now in Savannah loot chests in the normal style Savannah houses, and the snowy houses of course have a new loot table. In the regular snow village houses you can now find snow blocks, potatoes, bread, beetroot seeds, beetroot soup, furnaces, emeralds, snowballs, and coal. And then in the houses belonging to villager professions there are specific loot chests. In shepherds' houses you can find wool and wheat. In masons' houses you can find clay balls, flower pots, stones, stone bricks, bread, yellow dye, smooth stones, and emeralds. In tanneries you can find leather, all types of leather armor pieces, bread, saddles, and emeralds. In weaponsmithies you can find diamonds, iron ingots, gold ingots, bread, apple, iron pickaxes, swords, and any type of iron armor piece, obsidian, oak saplings, and all types of horse armor. In the armorer's chests you can find iron ingots, bread, iron helmets, and emeralds. In butcher's houses you can find emeralds, pork chops, wheat, beef, mutton, and coal. And in cartographer's houses you can find maps, papers, breads, and oak saplings. Finally, let's get into some technical changes. There is a new loot table function called copy_NBT, which copies NBT from a source to the spawned item tags. There are also some bug fixes to commands. One where if you replaced a jukebox with a record in it, would drop that record as an item. One where shulker boxes that had the lock NBT tags lost that tag when they were broken. And the /data modify command would copy source NBT by creating a reference rather than a full copy. Those are all the changes for 18w49a. Like I mentioned before, if you want to experiment, the village test worlds I showed in this version are available to download at a link in the video description. If you want to try this version out, head into your Minecraft launcher, go into launch options and enable snapshots. Click OK after reading the message, then head to the News tab where now in the drop-down box next to the play button, you'll be able to select a latest snapshot option. Do that and start the game to play the latest snapshot or pre-release version, which is currently this one, 18w49a. Keep in mind, snapshots are experimental versions, they can crash your game or corrupt your world, and once you upgrade to a snapshot, you can never go back to the previous released version on that world. So make sure you test this on a separate test world or on a backup of your world. And that was all from me for this time. If you found this video useful, please help me out in return and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Minecraft news, then subscribe to my channel where I do update videos for every single new snapshot or version of Minecraft. My name is slicedlime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.